Papa.
Into
You
the
know
best
Papa.
breakfast show in all of the land.
Bites as hard as he can.
Even
Okay,
if
and
we
of
do. Message for all of us. Let's take a listen to the president.
Fellow Ghanaians, good evening. Tomorrow, 4 years ago...
You know, I've watched you. Sometimes our people disagree with you, but I mean, I understand some of your approach. I mean, sometimes we take a hard bite. It helps us as politicians.
Nowadays, when I listen to you, I even panic. Why? Hey,
why do you panic?
The way you, Papa, you know Papa.
Figuratively, he bites as hard as he can. Okay, and of course, when he puts his fangs into you, you certainly feel it. I think it prickles.
Johnny's bite.
And the founding of the new nation state of Ghana. 4 years on, it is good to see that the needless controversy, spurred on by largely outdated political considerations...
You know, I've watched you. Sometimes our people disagree with you, but I mean, I understand some of your approach. I mean, sometimes we take a hard bite. It helps us as politicians.
Nowadays, when I listen to you, I even panic. Why? Hey,
why do you
panic? The way you, Papa, you know Papa.
Made by many
Figuratively, he bites as hard as he can. Okay, and of course, when he puts his fangs into you, you certainly feel it. I think it prickles.
Johnny's bite.
The life and history of our nation is one of utmost importance. It is indeed a sacred
You know, I've watched you. Sometimes our people disagree with you, but I mean, I understand some of your approach. I mean, sometimes we take a hard bite. It helps us as politicians.
Nowadays, when I listen to you, I even panic. Why? Hey, why do you panic? The way you, Papa, you know Papa.
Made by many
Figuratively, he bites as hard as he can. Okay, and of course, when he puts his fangs into you, you certainly feel it. I think it prickles.
Johnny's bite.
in the life and history of our nation is one of utmost importance. It is indeed a sacred.
He says it is indeed a sacred day, and that's what the president had to say about Founders
You know,
Day. Today
I've
is
watched you.
Founders
Sometimes
Day.
our people
It's the
disagree with
holiday
you, but
edition of the
I
3FM
mean, I
Morning
understand
Sunrise Show,
some of your
and
approach.
you
I
are
mean,
most
sometimes we
welcome.
take
DJ
a hard
Abiam is
bite.
here
It
on the
helps us
ones
as
and twos.
Nowadays,
Get
when I listen to
comfortable.
you,
Well, what do you have planned for your Founders Day holiday? What do you have planned for the entire weekend? Connect with us. We do this in tandem with you. You can find us on the socials. Find us on Facebook, Instagram. We're also on Twitter. In fact, is it still called Twitter? Kukwa is in the studio. Social media. Kukwa, is it still called Twitter or it's called X? It's still called Twitter. Okay, well, I don't know. I don't know what Elon Musk has for us next week. Every few days, he changes his mind about what the app should look like. But we're still on Twitter. You can find us there at 3FM927, all one word. Connect with us. The hashtag we're using this morning, 3FM Sunrise.
3FM Sunrise.
Now, for my early risers, do check out 3news.com for all of the latest stories. You can also listen to us on the go. Again, on 3news.com.
3FM Sunrise.
To the studio, he waltzed in. He did a little 2-step, 3-step, 4-step into the studio. Celebration, jubilation. We love it. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Founders Day. We're here.
Indeed.
I hope our founders are happy with what we are doing to the country, though.
If you could hazard a guess, what do you think?
And so on and so forth.
So on and so forth. We're here again.
I mean, what is there to celebrate? We are alive, and that's the most important thing. So there's
Indeed.
hope. So this morning, the only thing we have to do is just preach hope, as merchants of hope.
Absolutely.
Because the way things are, the founders, I don't know which one of them will be happy. Especially what is happening around the sub-region, ECOWAS sub-region.
Definitely.
Talk about people like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and what he was pushing for, African unity, one Africa, and now here we are. You know.
Indeed.
People are talking about wars, military interventions, coup d'etats, but the people, especially men, the women and children are suffering. And
that's right.
This is not what we envisaged 66 years ago, and for some many African countries 60 years ago, when we're all trying to get away from the shackles of colonialism. This is not what we were bargaining for.
No.
It's sad, but we are alive, so we celebrate life.
Absolutely. It's something to celebrate, but it does make you reflect that as a young African woman, this isn't the 2023 that I envisaged. The things that I read about, we learned during social studies, we thought were things of the past. So to see that in our sub-region, in the Sahel, there seems to be a desire to move away from democratic rule should make all of us wake up. Where has this seeming sudden thirst for coups come from? Has it been simmering? Is there something going on? Is it infectious? Should we be wearing our masks so we are not infected?
I think there should be a broad conversation, a Pan-African conference or some sort on the kind of democracy we are running in Africa. I've said on the show that we should have a way. Maybe you stand for a 4-year term, but there should be some mid-term election of some sort.
Right.
Because the expectations of the African are so high that if you come within the 4 years, and in some countries the 5 years for the first term, and we see halfway that you are not delivering, we should go to the polls and do something about it, rather than giving the opportunity to adventurous military officers, young military officers, to take up arms and destabilize the country. I think we should still use the democratic processes to get non-performing leaders out.
Agreed.
That should be possible.
Agreed, especially in the instances where we see that military rule is not even the savior that it is made out to be.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to live through that type of chaos.
Those who get into the space of politics now, obviously across the continent, and if you like the sub-region of ECOWAS, have indicated to us quite clearly that they are there to line their pockets and also to line the pockets of their families and friends. It's clear. I mean, nobody can contest that, because people who come in military uniforms and shoot people, kill people for corruption and nepotism and the rest, they end up doing the same thing.
Correct.
And a lot of them have their children outside the continent, not even outside their countries, outside the continent.
Indeed.
And so the picture is quite clear that they get in there to first of all sort themselves out economically, socially, and then end up messing their various countries. You can't tell me one West African country that has done so well because there were coups there. I mean, Burkina Faso, our neighbor, there's a military head there. Now in Niger, you go to Mali, Ghana, we've had our share.
That's right.
Until, the last one by the late former President Rawlings. And so we cannot say, there's nothing on the ground that shows that coup d'etats have over the years helped to speed up the development process of West Africa. There's nothing on the ground to show. For us as Ghanaians, what we can say is that President Rawlings was strong enough to stabilize the country. We learned our lessons, and as a country, we backed him to tighten the security of the states, for which reason I don't think coup d'etats will be attractive to us as Ghanaians now.
That's right.
But unfortunately, when you go to the French-speaking West African states, it's quite attractive. And as General Mosquito of the NDC, the chairman, Mr. Isidun Kecha, said yesterday, we should also be addressing the underlying issues, because France has so much hold on the Sahel region, especially the French-speaking countries, and they seem to be manipulating the governance of those countries. And the Americans will tell you, they also have their hands in almost every state over the years, from the 1700s to date.
That's right.
They stay there and they literally remote control the systems across the world. And these are things that the UN too should be looking at. You talk about America in Afghanistan, Russia in Afghanistan, America here, US there, Britain here, France there. Why would they also not allow the systems to grow and become like the democracies that they are enjoying? So basically, that's my take on today.
Love that. We're going to cut this soundbite. Very in-depth perspective. But let's get back onto home soil. This one captured on 3news.com. I call him Mr. Interceptor. Mr. Interceptor himself, the Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa. He's the MP for North Tong, and I'd say he's at the center of this particular scandal, if you will. I say that it's a scandal. But Parliament sets up ad hoc committee to probe a national cathedral project. Again, captured on 3news.com. Ghana's Parliament has set up a committee to investigate the National Cathedral project after North Tong lawmaker Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, together with 5 other minority members, filed a private member's motion demanding the scrutiny of the project. Mr. Ablakwa has been making a series of corruption allegations with regard to the stalled project. Second, Deputy Speaker Andrew Amakwesiama, adopting the motion for onward action by the leadership of the House on Thursday, August 3rd, said This motion is a very, very important one, and I pray that this House will approve this motion under 919. Order 919 provides that the House at any time by motion appoint a special or ad hoc committee to investigate any matter of public importance. The National Cathedral Project of Ghana is essentially the most expensive project in the history of Ghana. As we speak, the project has ballooned from 100 million to 400 million US dollars, and it is still a moving target. It is still rising. So far, about $58 million has been spent on the project, and we see what has become the subject of such controversy. Sixtus, good morning to you.
Good morning, Helen.
How are you doing?
That could have been better.
Wow, it's Founders Day. We've managed to drag you out of bed. Were you hoping to still be snuggled up warm?
But I should have been, in some nice glass house by the seaside.
Okay, be measured. It's 6:40. Okay, don't take us too far. Okay. Your fantasy is evolving. We're live on air. But good morning. It's good to see you.
But I had to join this because William tickled some of my interest areas.
Sure. So shall we park the Mr. Interceptor for now? You give us your thoughts.
Yes, let's park Mr. In fact, we can park him because it's part of the problem.
Sure.
I mean, 60 years after independence, more than 60 years after independence, these are not decisions that we should still be having problems with. I cannot, for the life of me, understand how the executive would take a decision without recourse to Parliament.
That's
and
right.
When it backfires, then there are all these, rush and explanations and attempts to find a nice way under the law to cover it. Remember the allocations that were made from the state coffers to the National Cathedral.
That's right.
Done by the finance minister. It became a huge
without
controversy
the approval of
Parliament. And when it came up, apparently there was something called contingency financing or funding that,
yes. Which we are told it should be used for emergencies.
Health emergencies.
Exactly.
Natural disasters.
Exactly.
We have a flood somewhere. My neighborhood, the Adabraka people, Sahara people, every time it drizzles, there's flood there. So such funding should be availed to such areas and to such problems. But that is not what we are seeing. We have a very smart political elite that will always find a way to go around the wording of the law to do things that satisfy their own ambitions and priorities. I mean, I cannot also understand how and why in a country you have an executive that takes a decision, everybody, from the Parliament, from social commentators, from political watchers, to everybody, sometimes even the laymen of all, would come to say that no, this shouldn't have been the decision. This is not what. And as we say, Chinchina, that is what the political rulership of the day would insist on doing. So, is it any wonder that we see the coups in our sub-region? Today, Donald Trump is facing charges.
Correct.
Can we ever, Helen, in your wildest imagination, do you see any African leader being arraigned for any acts of corruption, for any... No. There would always be a way of covering the leader, no matter what happens. At worst, you find some of his or her appointees taking the fall. But to have the figurehead of an administration, a political administration, I mean, hauled before the court, tried for actions or inactions during the administration, you won't find that.
Absolutely.
And that is another problem for us as a continent. I mean, if it were in Africa, Donald Trump would not go anywhere. He won't.
In fact, he would probably still be at post.
Yeah.
Yes.
He would have.
Probably still be.
Even though, I mean, from the stories that we have read, that was his ultimate goal. So there really probably would be no clear distinction between him and those African leaders who would amend constitutions to stay in power. Maybe if he had the opportunity, he would have.
Yeah.
But my comment is merely based on the stories that we have read. But if we come back to examine the causes, reasons for the coups that we see in our region, we shouldn't be surprised. I listened to one of the African voices, Pan-African voices, and by the way, I like to see myself as a Pan-Africanist. I listened to one of them questioning the decision by ECOWAS heads of states to resort to military action. In fact, I have always been one of those who advocated that we cannot, as a sub-region and as a regional body, so that's ECOWAS and African Union, do without a standing military. We should have that. If we have an AU, we have an ECOWAS, then we should be able to have a standing military to deal with some pockets of violence, upheavals that we see within the sub-region and the region at large.
So that they would be moving in instances such as this. Uprisings, coups, even, murmurings of a coup, then they go in.
Yes.
Okay.
So that if we realize that there are troubles in this country, then we have a standing army that would deal with it at the sub-regional level or at the regional level. But we shouldn't always be relying on the US, France, Russia. We shouldn't be relying on them for such military interventions. If Mali has a problem today, the regional body should be able to organize a military force or intervention. It should be possible. Why do we have to resort to America or France or Russia or the UN? Why should we have to? As a sub-regional body, we should be able to do these things. But these are not things that we are able to do. But in this particular instance, and I listened to that voice, which I shared on our platform.
That's right.
That the reasons for these coups should be re-examined. And all heads of states across the sub-region and the region at large should be able to sit back and ask themselves, why do we have these upheavals in our countries? Nobody's preaching a coup. Nobody's preaching unrest. Nobody's asking people to march onto the streets, besiege the Parliament House or Jubilee House. Nobody's asking that. But there comes a time the people simply get fed up. And when that happens, you can't control it.
I think we can place that against the analogy that William likes to share on the show concerning water. If you put a block against moving water, the pressure will build up, it will find its way out. And that is what we're seeing, I think,
it's as
bubbling
simple as that.
In our sub-region.
Helen, you see the middle class, those who like to call themselves the middle class. Me, I like to see myself as still with the people. I'm a man of the people.
So which class is that one?
I'm with the people.
Okay. The people's class.
You see those of you who drive your cars, rolls
please,
up.
I am also
tinted.
with the people's class. The people's class prefect, please.
You roll up, you have air condition, you are playing some nice soothing music
jazz,
in the car,
maybe.
Jazz, and you pull up at the traffic light. It's red, you pull up and those boys come, they rush to you, they want to clean your shields for you, and you give them some 50 pesos. Some of you will have the temerity to shush them away. Some of you will give them some 10 pesos and others will shout at them. You see those guys?
Yeah.
When they start attacking out of anger, and we are seeing it already. We are
That's
seeing
right.
people attacked at traffic intersections.
Yes.
Out of anger. They won't care whether you are a political office holder, whether you are an MP, whether you are a DCE or MCE, whether you are a presidential staffer, whether you are a broadcaster, whether you are a pure hustler who has just made his money like DJ Abiam and has been able to afford himself a decent, should I mention the model of the car?
Whether your uncle has maybe left you a car to use for...
maybe you inherited a pot of dollars with some bag of, royal, this one, and you have been able to find yourself... No, your necklace is still on your neck.
I thought it had found its way.
No. The gold is pure, actually.
All right.
So whether you are doing well because of a certain political grounding, or you are just like any other hustler in town, they won't care. So long as you are driving a car, and you pull up at that intersection, they see you as part of the problem because they feel that you have not been able to adequately advocate for them. So the middle class, across the sub-region, would always behave like, okay, we are not part of the problem. We don't want to talk about the problem. It is a certain political elite. And what hurts me most is when I hear people say, learned people, educated people, say, oh, me, I don't like politics. Me, I'm not interested.
I find that comment so shocking because
all those people should be rounded out.
Your life depends on politics. When you say I'm not interested in politics, you don't have a choice but to be interested in politics. Your life depends on it.
You don't have a choice.
Are they saying they are not interested in partisan politics, or they are not interested in politics?
Some people will tell you I'm not interested in
politics generally. There's a problem.
Well, of course, I mean...
You see, when the Occupy Flagstaff House, then it was called Flagstaff House. I mean, this country, every 8 years, we change names. Founders Day, Jubilee House, Flagstaff House. Let's see what the C people do when we come to power.
Are you partisan?
Why are you?
Are you partisan now?
Why are you laughing?
Well, on that perspective, let's move on. Again, as I mentioned, 3news.com has all of the latest. This one about Parliament setting up an ad hoc committee to probe the National Cathedral project. But for the uninitiated, let's take a listen to what the President had to say about the National Cathedral on the 27th of August 2018. Take a listen.
6th March 2017, the 60th year of our independence. I cut the sword for the construction of a national cathedral on my way to the Independence Square celebration. The purpose of the cathedral, as I indicated at the sword cutting, was to offer thanksgiving to the Almighty for his blessings to us as a nation, and to address a missing link in the nation's architecture by building a church for national purposes. We're grateful to the Almighty that exactly a year on, and once again on my way to the Independence Square celebrations, we're gathered here to unveil the design. I'm deeply grateful to the distinguished Board of Trustees, and the eminent clergy, and the Secretariat of the Cathedral Project for working around the clock to make this possible. One of the significant developments of the past year was the commissioning of an architect for the cathedral project. I'm proud to announce to the nation that we have commissioned one of the most iconic of contemporary global architects and a son of Ghana, David Adjaye, as the main architect for the project. Throughout history, what has distinguished the great cathedrals and those with a national character is the broad mobilization of the entire community in support of the building and maintenance of the cathedrals. Before the cathedrals, this was true of the temples and the tabernacle. On Sunday, the 25th of February this year, I visited the Washington National Cathedral to go and worship, and was reminded once again of this truth. The challenge of building Ghana's national cathedral, therefore, relates to the mobilization of our people in support of the project.
3FM,
the broad representation of the Ghanaian Christian community at this event shows the emergence of a national coalition that will arise and build the cathedral to the glory of God.
We will rise and build the cathedral to the glory of God. And that is what the president had to say again in 2018 about the building of this national cathedral. Now, we do know that an ad hoc committee has been set up by Parliament to probe the National Cathedral project. And you know, this is one that is of particular interest to myself. I've been following the conversation since...
Special assistant to the Interceptor General.
I mean, this one, it's been on my radar because as the issues and details unfolded, it was almost like watching some type of film, issue after issue. For me, what I call scandal after scandal. Where did the monies even come from? Parliament didn't approve of this. Again, even the route, how we came about a national cathedral. The president had said at one point that it was a promise that he had made to God in the event that he was successful in his bid to become president. And we've seen that gradually graduate into becoming something that has affected our economy, our personal pocket, something that came as a result of a personal promise, we were told. And then slowly we were told, well, private, public partnership. Money is taken from some type of consolidated contingency fund for something that is not an emergency. You listen to the president speaking, he talks about an esteemed board of trustees. Who appointed said board of trustees? It was done privately. Public funds paid to a contractor. PPP laws flouted. Why did we go and pick the most expensive architect that we could find at a time when we are not swimming in cash and we have to cut our coats according to our size? Even on the side of contracting, said David,
is a Ghanaian and could have said, "Oh, this is my
thank you. This is my contribution to my motherland." Fair enough. He's a businessman. Maybe he doesn't have the capacity to do so. At the time that he was awarded the contract, didn't even have the proper licensing to do so in this country. Had a special ceremony set up for him in one minister's office after being awarded a contract for something as sacred as a national cathedral. You would think that the processes that would have been put in place would be squeaky clean. Unlike some of the kpakpakpa you hear for other projects, this is not the type of project that should be marred with so much controversy. And now we have an expensive pit just there. We had to relocate judges, had to relocate some very important institutions, and for what?
The politicians
somebody
describe
has
it as
to
the most
refund
expensive pit ever done.
Somebody has to be answering some very serious questions. And I know we're living in a poly-crisis, so our attention has to go here, there, and everywhere because we can't focus on just one thing. But I, for one, I'm very happy about this ad hoc committee being set up. I think it's a travesty, the whole idea. We are putting Band-Aid on gunshot wounds. We won't fix land trains. We're thinking about sky trains. The fundamentals are not of concern to us. Lofty ideas. When the road, go on the motorway. The last time I went there, I thought to myself, I mean, are we serious?
And the answer to that question is not so much. Because in the last few years, what I've observed is that the financial structure of all projects or policies or programs rolled out by the government have been problematic. Every program or project policy that has been put out, the financials have not been clear, and so the project is launched with pomp and circumstance, and then the following year or two, they are running aground because the finances are not. First of all, we don't have clearance for the financing of some of these projects from Parliament, which the law directs. Quite clearly, or we don't know how we're going to make money to repay the funds that we inject into the projects from the beginning. You look at a project like NAPCO. What were we thinking when we said that we're going to solve youth unemployment by going to give them some space to learn, equip themselves, and then start their own businesses? That's the basic understanding I got. But we have National Service, which was already doing that. And so if there were shortcomings or problems with National Service, we fix it, because National Service, they even have farms and other projects that they're doing, generating some IGF. But this is a situation where you put 100,000 youth together, pay them money that you don't have, and then at the end of the month, they struggle to get paid. As we speak, there are still arrears to be paid.
That's
so
right.
All those programs and policies were not, thought through properly because of the fact that the financial structure, we thought we had money. And sometimes you think the president and his team, they do these things because of what the president said when he wanted power, that Yetisikasu. You know, he has the impression that Ghana has money. That's the impression I get.
But I also have that impression.
Yeah, he thinks that Ghana has money, so let's do it. Just do it. And then this is my ambition, this is my vision, this is my mission. Let's move. And then you start the project, and then you throw everything into a quagmire. And then at the end of the day, the country begins to struggle, and it affects the macroeconomic environment. This is why we are speaking about the Bank of Ghana. Last night I was listening to the experts, and they were claiming that, look, this debt exchange program, we don't even know how much it's costing us. Nobody has asked the question. You've cut here, you've gone to Bank of Ghana, cut 50 billion. If you put all together, putting 1 and 2 together, they were even nearing 92 billion.
Wow.
And if you break down with the 12 cedis per dollar that
parliamentarians don't even know how much it's Parliament.
Yes. Exactly.
Parliament
and we listened to Dr. K. Sofosun talk about that.
This initial figures that they are putting together, 92 billion. If you break it down with the $12 cedi per dollar, that's giving us about 7 billion, which is double of what we went for from the IMF. So I'm saying that there are a lot of things that we can do as a country. But the basic principle of life for me is you cannot give what you don't have. God gave us Jesus Christ, his beloved son, because he had him. You know what I'm saying? He said, I give you my only begotten son. Because he got him. It is there, begotten. But you don't have. And you see, no, it's not a joke. You cannot give. You see, if you live your life like that, you don't have problems. That's the basic principle for me as an individual, as I move. And everybody who has read law to some extent, you know, that's the basic principle also in law. You know, you can't give what you don't have. If you go and buy a land, then somebody who has only possession gives you the land and you pay for it. In law, he doesn't own it. You have no title. He has no title. What title do you have to go and build a national cathedral? You don't have financial title. And that's where we are. The individual who designed the thing hasn't even finished the project, and he has taken so much from us as a country. That is sad indeed. Today's Founders Day, I'm asking, all these things that the country is going through, is this what the Paulis of the 70s and 60s, you know, envisaged and planned for Ghana? No. You know, Dr. Nkrumah won election from prison. Is that what he fought for? No. The dawning of our democracy, of our politics. J.B. Dankwa was in prison. Is that why he went to prison? No. Akwa J and Co. Is that what they were fighting for? No. You know, you were talking about the African High Command, the military thing that we're talking about. Nkrumah called for unity, African unity, so that we'll have some regions where we have one leader, but people thought he was over-ambitious. You know, this man started the same thing, Gaddafi. He rode on the road from Libya to some countries, and the Westerners saw him as a threat. They got him out. Nkrumah started the same project, the CIA came for him. So I'm saying that if we don't unite as a continent, and look at what we're talking about, intervening in Niger and some 3 others sitting somewhere in camouflage that were designed for them by Westerners, and guns that were designed for them by
irony
Westerners.
Of life.
And MOWACs and tanks and AK-47s that were built for them by Westerners, threatening war with your fingers or with what? I mean, these are people who are not thinking. It's as simple as that. Because look, people are in your country, and if you look at the visuals, the optics from these countries, death roads in 2023, almost everywhere in Burkina Faso, death road. And they are riding Toyota pickups sitting on top, dressed in clothes that were designed and produced by Westerners. So they will always take us for a joke. You know what I mean? This is not for you to go and declare war on a block, sub-regional block that is trying to, you know, straighten the governance of a certain country that has been destabilized by an adventurist. You don't go and declare war. War on who? Burkina Faso, with your tomatoes or onion economy. No, I mean, it's a joke. You know what I mean? What are we talking about? Niger is a landlocked country. What do they have? Until recently, we saw a lot of Nigerians on our roads.
That is
begging.
correct.
Malians on our roads begging.
I think they have made a comeback just recently. I've seen
You know,
a whole
so
host.
you sit as a young African and you listen, and these are young people too. Look at the young man in Burkina Faso,
35
handsome gentleman, 34,
years old.
34. Look at the guy in Mali, some handsome gentleman. Look at the guy in Niger. What did they enter the military for? And
that is why I say we need to reevaluate the causes of these actions, the coups that we see. If you have a president, some 90-something-year-old man who is president of a country, been there for long, the people are not seeing any change, and they keep amending constitutions to stay in power. Why won't people be angry?
And beyond and besides that, sisters, these old men live lives as if they are kings.
Yes.
And their families live like royals.
They take decisions like there are no checks and balances in the country.
Like royals.
It's I say this as often as I can, that no party comes into power as an NGO. They're using your taxes. They're only custodians of the resources that belong to all of us. And yet somebody can put a forest reserve as part of their will to give to somebody
forever.
And you think the audacity, the sheer audacity.
You see, so if we really want to...
But you see, that is why, and coming back to the question, throughout our political history, the one lesson we can learn is that there's never been a success at building consensus in decision making. You can look at from the struggles, the independence motion itself, see the challenges it went through, and history tells us that economic troubles, the very recent ones we can cite, Senchi what? The one Muhammad did.
The Century Report.
The Century Report.
In fact, the IMF...
engagement that led to
yes,
the
Oxfam says
Report.
that they thought that was one of the better handled IMF programs because there was a call for consensus building and there was a call for collaboration,
but
regardless
at the end
of
of the day,
what
we
faction.
did not have the factions come together.
Only
it
I
ended
think
up
I
being
believe
the NDC and the so-called smaller parties.
And I believe Kwame Penim was the only person from that side that.
So, in fact,
came.
we know from our own political history that we have never been able to build consensus and to make decisions as a united front, even on the issues that concern us. If that had happened, we wouldn't have been seeing the things we are seeing with the National Cathedral. I mean, in principle, I have not heard anybody, even Ablakwa himself, who has led this, and I think he's earned himself the title anti-National Cathedral campaigner.
I see.
Even though he doesn't like to be referred to as such. Even I haven't heard him say, in principle, that he's against the idea of a national cathedral. Right. I'm yet to hear anybody make that argument. The argument has always been, what are our priorities? Where do we get the money from to do this, execute this? Should it be a purely private sector financed or led project, or the state should give something? If the state should contribute financially to this, does the state have the financial muscle to be able to do this? If the state does not, what are the timelines? Can the state execute this project within the 4 years that the president intends to do it? Again, is this your most preferred location to site such a project? I mean, in the voice you played, I heard the president refer to it as a missing link between...
He said it's the missing link in our country's architecture. The missing link in our country's architecture, I would say, is...
This is nothing but brofu.
But brofu.
The irony of that statement even is that the structures that were pulled down, some of them are historic.
Definitely.
Some of them are monuments that, in fact, whether we had people occupying them or not, should have still been there.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have a lot of bungalows that state functionaries lived in, presidents lived in, ministers lived in, that should have been maintained up to date. We don't have them. All of those were pulled down. So what architecture are we talking about?
Yeah.
But I'm sure that if we had a national conversation on this, if we had brought people together to discuss all these issues, the financing, the location, the even the buy-in, get the people to buy into the projects.
Yeah.
And as a development communicator, these are some of the things that you learn, basic stuff.
Yeah.
That the people have to feel a part of the project. They have to own the project to be able to make the project a success. It's as simple as that. So if the people don't agree with you, I can't get food to eat, and you say I should put up a monument that you call a missing link in national architecture. The thing is even too heavy for my mouth.
No, I think we should concentrate on the roads. The roads are getting bad, oh. They are getting bad. They are getting bad.
No, they are already bad.
They are already bad. No, since it's been raining where I live, for example, Wow. I don't know what is going to happen after the month is done.
Medina.
Yeah.
Johnny and Trudy and Abiam, the guys, they were laughing at me that my car was too dirty. I said, the car, I've given up on washing it.
Yeah.
Because you wash it, by the time you come into town and go back to your village, it's back to square one. And it costs to wash. So should I wash my car every day? The least drizzle, you can't go through. I mean, I will leave that discussion to William. He is the expert on that.
No, I think as soon as I mentioned roads, William just said, forget about it. You guys don't know what you're talking about. William, what is the state of affairs? It's still awful.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. Because I spoke to the MP once and he told me, look, those residents who meet and say they are collecting money to try and fix the road, he's not advising us to do that because there's no way we can raise enough money to build that road. So once a while somebody has some small money, then you get some machine to come and just level it up. But with the rains, it's even worse when you do that because as soon as you scrape, the following day rains, it gets worse. So for 3-4 months of the rainy season, you just have to struggle through. I mean, it's a very sad story. As I said earlier, in 2023, you look at all the West African countries, and a lot of them have dirt roads, making the larger part of their road network. And it's interesting. I was in a program recently when, I think a couple of days ago, the Ministry of Transport was launching a draft policy on electric vehicles. And after the discussion, we went through all the processes, and I was asking the Honorable Deputy Minister. Now, these electric vehicles are not sky vehicles. They are going to run on our roads.
On the road.
And now, are they amphibious vehicles? Because our roads have potholes that are similar to wells. When it rains, you have water in it. And these cars are going to literally be swimming in. So what are we doing to prepare our roads for the electric vehicles? Because some Western countries are saying that by a certain year, they are going to phase out these internal combustion engines, the normal petrol diesel engines. They're not going to run them at all because of climate change. So if by 2070, as Ghana is targeting, we are looking at rolling out a concrete electric vehicle plan where all these petrol engines and diesel engines will be phased out because of climate change. What routes are these vehicles going to run on?
Well, at least I think they projected, like you said, 2078.
2070 there. So if you are going to do that, but you see, technology said that you give yourself
2078. I think I saw.
Will still be alive.
No, but you see, the catch here is, and that's why I commend the ministry for beginning this countrywide conversation, stakeholder engagement. It's important to know that technology moves so fast that you can give yourself 2070. But by 2026, the thing will just come and hit you.
And
that is true.
Indeed, we have electric cars in the country.
We even have charging. The last time I checked, even if you go to DVLA, if I remember the numbers, they're already registering about 17,000 electric cars over the period.
I see.
We have some in the country already.
And
so
already charging ports are springing up across the country. So although we are talking about 2070, if we don't plan, by 2030, 35,
we'll be overtaken.
Because now people will be importing those vehicles. And again, if we're going to use that to clean up the atmosphere, what are we doing about the thermal plants that we have around? Because they're also using fossil fuel to power them. And of course, so now we have to look at renewable energy where solar energy will come in, green houses will come in, and so on. So it's a very huge conversation when you talk about our road infrastructure and even the engineering of the roads. Are we ready for these electric vehicles? Some countries are encouraging bicycles, and the road infrastructure makes room for the bicycles. Now look at this Pragya. Who has thought that? Look, there should be. The Chinese started doing this Pragya, but when you go to China, they have the road infrastructure is demarcated in the way that those vehicles run without
their own lanes,
crisscrossing anybody. So we as a country should be, and that's why I say again, I commend the ministry putting 2070, which is very far, giving themselves space to plan. So if we are looking at what the technologies are doing around the world,
but I hope it doesn't turn out to be like our BRT project. I mean, we started BRT when 2008 thereabout. That was when the conversation started, and I think the estimates were that by 2020 thereabout.
But you see, it's also about the consistency that we attach to some of these projects. the government
with the
that
change in
exactly.
government.
That's one thing that's also hurting us.
Yes.
We put it together. Another country comes, we push it aside. Now those lanes that they created on our highways for the BRT cars, they are being used by the trotro.
By the trotros, yes.
You know. So who in this country has taken care of the trotro, which has been with us since the 1800s? Nobody has, even the way they operate. See, they cannot operate like the way you drive on the road or the buses run. They just stop as and when people want to pick them. What have we done about them? I mean, about them. We haven't done much. So, thinking through things, I think, if you ask me about the road, I heard in the media budget review that we're talking about, how do you call it, community roads. And that's what all Ghanaians are asking for. Everybody's community is crying for roads.
That's right.
So if it's just word, do we have the money to fix them? That's the point I was making earlier. We shouldn't just be coming and be talking because people are already angry.
Anyway, but the important thing, Helen, is that today is a day that we should also use to encourage ourselves.
Absolutely.
That there were people who fought for us to be able to sit on air and speak freely.
That's right.
And we should be able to use that to tell ourselves that we also have a role to play.
Indeed.
That you, as a journalist, you have a role to play. Broadcasters, we have role to play. The street sweeper has a role to play.
Indeed.
The DJ has a role to play. It shouldn't always be about the political office holder. And that is why I use the example of middle class people getting attacked by the people who think that we are the problem, actually. So I think that on a day like this, it shouldn't only be about the lamentation. Let's reflect. Let's reflect on the sacrifices that have been made. People paid the ultimate price. There are people who were rendered orphans. There are people who were rendered widows just so that we can enjoy the freedoms, rights and privileges that we enjoy today. And I think that on a day like this, we should also be able to reflect on that and ultimately ask ourselves, what is my personal contribution? What should I be doing in my space? Should I be a citizen or I should be a spectator?
Sixtus for president. Well, time check. It is some 15 minutes past the hour of 7. You're still live here on 3FM Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. It's the special holiday edition. Today is Founders Day. It's the 4th of August, 2023. Again, thank you so much for starting your morning with us. We have a lot in store for you. Accra to London is trending, and we'll tell you exactly why that is. We have some time with the participants. Ghana Man Adventures. If you're wondering what exactly is going on, stick with us all the way up until 10 a.m. Also, our colleague Godwin Asidaba has another great one out. You can catch it on the socials if you didn't catch it when it premiered. My period is not a shame. He'll talk us through exactly how he put together that very wonderful piece. We'll also be talking about rekindling a reading habit in young people. Lot Annan is an executive member at Tema Global Foundation. Also, he'll be here with Esther Ajiman, executive member, Tema Global Foundation. Let's rekindle our love for reading. It's also Youth Month on 3FM 92.7. We're focusing on our youthful population, our concerns, our issues, and also looking for some solutions to said issues and problems. Stick with us. This is 3FM Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. We do this in tandem with you. Find us on the socials and connect with us.